Hello and welcome to today's update on the state of the presidential election as of October the 30th. My name is John Toppelmeyer, and today I'm going to talk about what the state of the race is nationally from the national and state level polls, and then that's going to be fairly brief. Then I'm going to turn my attention to the early voting and some very telling early voting that's come in from Nevada and from Arizona. So I've got those two states that have very interesting results so far. And we've also got some other states to cover. So let's get into it. And nationally, we had no national polls that came out in the last 24 hours that were reported on the Real Clear Politics website. And I've used Real Clear Politics for this map here. And but a ton of state polls, and mostly in the swing states: Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, all had a few polls in each of those states. And so we've had some shifting in the numbers in those states as a result of it. Now, I want to point out there's been the biggest shift that came in Wisconsin, Michigan, and that was the result of two CNN polls that came out. Wisconsin that had a +6 for Harris in Wisconsin, and in Michigan they had Harris up by +5. CNN also had Pennsylvania tied. So, but a little bit suspicious. Those numbers seem really high, but I have to include them. So I've included them. It's part of the mix. It's their data points. But as a result of that, Wisconsin and Michigan are now the closest states, according to the polling. Wisconsin 0.6, Michigan 0.7, Nevada 0.8, and then Pennsylvania a little bit tighter, comes in at 1.5, North Carolina a little bit tighter, 1.5, and then Arizona 2.1 and Georgia 2.7. Does that mean the race is tightening up? Not necessarily, because a lot of this is just those two polls there, and we don't really know if that's indicative of they're just a couple of bad polls that have come in. CNN does have a reputation for tilting towards the Democrats. They've got a history of doing that. We haven't seen so much of it this cycle, but now suddenly it's popped up again with a week before the election. So, but nothing has really changed. Harris's path to the White House continues to be these three states of Nevada, Wisconsin, and Michigan as a base, and then either North Carolina or Pennsylvania. One of these two, if she does those three states and one of those two states, she would cross over 270. So that's basically, even though Donald Trump appears to lead in all of the swing states, but Kamala Harris still has a path to victory here. So it remains a tight race, but we've got a different picture. Although some things that are muddying the water, but not because of the early voting numbers, but some polling numbers that aren't necessarily substantiating what I'm going to tell you. But here's the early voting, and we're going to start with Nevada again. And the in-person and mail voting totals, we're now through. These numbers dropped about an hour and a half ago before I made this video. They're showing that the Republicans have about a 44,000 vote lead in total votes cast over the Democrats. But then you've got this big vote. This is other are independents, some third party, mostly independents. And in that group, in that other independent group, the polling suggests that Trump is leading 49-44 in Nevada among that group. So if we take the 44,000 here, and we've got about a 5%, that's another 10,000. Trump should be up, about what, 45,000, or let's see. I'm sorry, about 55,000 or so. So you got 44, 45,000, and then another 10,000, about 55,000. That's what you would guess, just kind of eyeballing that, making this is a rough wash and about a 5 point lead in the independent vote. And that is what we have. I have that Trump is leading by about 56,000, 55, 56,000 votes. The percentage share just tightened a little bit, but not a lot. And the reason is that Trump's lead continues to grow in the in-person voting. The offsetting in the mail-in voting isn't that much because more Republicans are voting this time by mail than the last time. So that the lead for the Democrats, they're not getting a substantial lead in the mail-in votes, and the Republicans have a big lead in the in-person voting. So, and along that with the at least the polling that's telling us that Trump is leading in the independents, that I have about a 6.5% a 6.5 percentage lead for Trump, fairly substantial. Now, what could question this? Could be the independent vote is a bit different. There could be a bit of a swing, uh, uh, but more somewhat of a swing in the Republican vote towards Harris, that there's defections in Republican vote that could explain something being a bit tighter. But it's hard for me right now to imagine that Trump is trailing, that Harris is in the lead in Nevada. That at this stage of the race, probably there's a good solid lead. The question is how much. And the interesting thing here, we now break it down the regional numbers, and I think it's important to go over this because most of Nevada is Clark County. That's Las Vegas. So Las Vegas, that's typically a Democratic Party. Typically in statewide races, the Democrats come in ahead in Clark County. That's Washoe, that's Reno, and Carson City. That usually has a slight lead for the Republicans. And then if the Democrats have a lead here, then the question is the rural vote going to be large enough? But with Trump, and even if this number is a bit inflated, Trump is competing with Harris in Clark County so far. I think that's the takeaway here. So with the Washoe lead and then the rural is heavily Republican, and we can see here it's about a 1 point lead for Trump in Clark County, about a 7 point lead in Reno and Carson City, and then this huge 38 point lead in the rural areas. So if this is going to tighten up, if this race is going to tighten up, things are going to have to really turn around in Clark County, or I'm really missing the independent vote in this state. Can't rule it out again. I can't rule it out. Now it's interesting. CNN, at least on this state, their number for the percentage of votes for Trump, for the people who've already voted, is exactly what I'm saying, 52-46. So rounding 52-46. They're agreeing with my model so far. But we're going to turn to Arizona, and we've got a similar picture actually. These are updated through October the 20th. That's Tuesday. We don't have the Wednesday numbers in Arizona. Again, we've got this solid Republican lead. So I want to keep that in mind when we look at what the estimation here. Now, as I said yesterday, I think that the polling suggesting there's some defections from the Republicans in this state towards the Democrats, and the Kamala Harris is leading along in independents, and that would come up to about a 12,000 vote lead. But if we have 130,000, 120, maybe 100, 110,000, something like that, roughly, you could see the Republicans should be ahead so far. They should be ahead. So, and my estimation is actually it's about 88 to 90,000. It's about a 4.7% lead, just under 5 percentage points. And as I say, I think the assumptions I'm making are pretty reasonable. it seems kind of conservative in that I'm saying that Harris does have a lead in the independent vote, and that because all that margin is a bit closer than what we'd expect just looking at the the Republican lead in the party identification vote. Now, an interesting thing here is that CNN says that Harris is up by about like 10 percentage points, and it just doesn't, which just seems crazy. It just doesn't make any sense. That she's going to have a 10 point. You'd have to have some wild lead in the independent vote. So one of the things is I'm seeing, at least what I've seen of the polling that's saying they've talked to the people who've already voted. These numbers are looking a little bit suspect. So especially when you're saying that Kamala Harris may have an 8 to 10 point lead in this early vote, just doesn't. I don't buy that. I think the Republicans are leading so far here, and so with that in mind, I'm going to turn now to the other states that I have early voting figures for, and it's North Carolina. That is also through Tuesday. Now we've got a big vote. It's 3.3 million votes have already been cast. This is through Tuesday. It doesn't include Wednesday. I have a very tight race. That's in party identification. I also estimated it with ethnicity. I just wanted to see what I would get, and it has Trump with about a 2 point lead. I would put a lot more stake on this number. Now, I think it's CNN is saying that Kamala Harris has a 2 point lead in the early vote. That's possible. I mean, that's possible. So I can't rule it out. So I think this ethnicity is a bit high. I'm going to have to go back but I just wanted to see what it looked like. It's giving Trump a lead, but I think these numbers are better. They're probably closer to reality. But I can't rule out that at least there, that a 2 point lead for Kamala Harris is not crazy. It's not crazy in this state so far. And with that, I'll turn to Georgia. Let me get a drink of water here. I have Georgia Trump with a 2 point lead, and again, these are substantial. Georgia's about roughly the same size as North Carolina. 3.2 million votes have been cast so far. That's the majority of the votes have already been cast in Georgia. These are big numbers. These are real big numbers. So with these numbers should begin to reflect the state of the race. Now, there were figures that were reported the other day by Maris that says that Kamala Harris has a 10 point lead. This was 3 days ago when they came out with their poll. They said that their poll said that Kamala Harris had a 10 point lead, and that might have been a little bit earlier in the voting cycle. But I think again, I can't take that number seriously. So you see numbers like that, if somebody says, yeah, well, that's telling you Kamala Harris is ahead, Trump might come in later on. But the Democratic Republican vote in this state's about even. But there's also a big independent vote, the big independent vote, and it's possible that and I think I have Harris up by 1 point. Maybe it's bigger. So these numbers are fuzzy. I'm not saying anything but I think the result of this, it's tight. It's going to be a close. It's going to be a close race. I can't say anything other than it's going to be a close race. Now, I want to just talk briefly about Pennsylvania. We've got some more numbers come in. The margin is narrowing. It's down to 20 points. This state, there's really not much you can say. I'm just going to report this. Most of the vote is going to be in person on day of. That's just still traditional. And even many Democrats vote in person in Pennsylvania on day of. It's a denser place. There's towns. It's not suburban. It's much less a suburban state. So I think that might be part of it, is that people's voting places might be within a walk of where they live. So it's just easier to vote in person in a older state with like Pennsylvania. So wouldn't put a lot in this. I haven't seen any numbers so far of what of the people who've already voted. I'll go take a look and see if there's anything to update on this. But we'll just. I wouldn't say that this doesn't say much about the state of the race there. Finally, I'm going to talk about the Nebraska second district, congressional district. That has one electoral college vote. Uh, my estimation on party identification is that Kamala Harris is up by about 7 points. It seems pretty spot on. There was a poll that came out in the last 24 hours that said it was about a 12-point lead for Harris in this district. I don't think it's that. I think these numbers, the Democrats do have an edge in party identification for people who voted already, and it's not surprising. I still think that the Kamala Harris is going to carry this district, but let's watch it and see how this unfolds. I think this is still a solid enough lead. So if you have an eye on the second district of Nebraska. So with that, I'm going to close. We've got a lot of stuff, a lot of news is coming in. Next 2 days are going to be really important in Nevada. We're also going to be watching Arizona real closely. Those are going to be the two best in terms of the early voting to tell us what might be happening. Certainly in Nevada, what's going to be happening as we go into election day. Arizona, not quite as much, but still likely. But there it is. It's still tight. It's still tense. And so there it is for today. So if you like this, if you like this analysis, please like and share. And look forward to seeing you again tomorrow, because I'm going to be here with another video tomorrow. So thanks for watching, and we will see you soon. Bye.